Rick Bakewell started in the medical community, was frustrated with that, and came to this sort of as a last option, hoping that this would work, and it did amazingly well. I can walk. Originally, I knew I had a problem, which was back-related, probably golf-related and other. But then dropfoot probably started 6 months or maybe more before I started to see you. So I said, this is the way I go pathwise. I'll go through the medical community. In part, I was frustrated because, what do you mean it's going to take 3 or 4 months to see this specialist and I got to go to Erie and different things, which I was not opposed to. And I went through the process. And then the end result, it was like, there is no solution. Maybe the solution is surgery, but there's like nothing we can do. We can't figure it out. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say as a last resort. When I was in seeing the physician's assistant with my personal doctor, she had mentioned this is what I would recommend. And originally I was a little hesitant because I'm like, is this really going to work? And I was like, well, I got nothing to lose. So I started probably August of 24, and within maybe 60 days or less, I could really walk.
Which was that? I mean, that was our,
which was
that was
amazing,
our goal from the beginning.
You know,
like
start as far as overall.
I mean, especially from when you said, like, you know, you described to me, you went to that one physician and he asked you to pull your toe up,
and I couldn't move it.
And you couldn't
My
move
foot
it.
was frozen. So that was like an aha moment where it's like, this is really bad. And as I started thinking about my age and wanting to be active and going to the gym and other things, I was like, it can't be this. I got to figure out a solution. This is too early in life to be. It's not like I'm 80 something.
No, you're an active guy.
Right.
You're a guy
So
that likes going to the gym, likes playing golf. Like, you do all these things. You are not a inactive individual. It's not right for somebody that likes to be as active as you are, which in all the cool traveling that you do and everything else, it's not right for somebody to just be like, ah, well, screw it.
Forget it.
Yeah.
And so coming in initially, I was like, well, you know, and you weren't promising the moon or anything that way. You were just like, I think I can be of help or assistance. And, you know, positive mindset, I was like, I think this will really work. And as we started to work together, then I was like, this is amazing how fast this is happening, meaning walking normal, doing more normal activities. Because originally, just before I came in, I had fallen, hurt my shoulder, and I was like, this is really bad.
Right.
We're really at a bad point here as far as overall. So.
Well, if I remember right, we even did a little, I mean, the shoulder even improved quicker than that, because I think we did a little bit of shoulder stuff, and that was, you know, we hit 2 birds with 1 stone, and all of a sudden the dominoes started to fall, which I guess you know, as you said, you started to notice those changes. What about this, like, what about the structure made it feel useful? Did anything specifically stand out about the way that we were doing things that, like, made it different?
So I don't really know because I haven't done physical therapy before. Right. But having said that, from our perspective, you were encouraging that, hey, I might be a really good candidate because it's not just going to be what you teach me when we're together.
Right.
Or that time as far as overall, I was taking what you were helping to teach or train me on, taking it to the gym or on my own, and then utilizing that. So that's, you know, I guess sort of a perfect combination. People who think, hey, I'm just going to go see a physical therapist or whatever, and everything's going to be absolutely perfect. It's not going to happen. You have to take what you understand or have learned and incorporate that into what you're trying to do.
Right. And I honestly, Rick, I think that's why you've been so successful too, and I've told you this many times, is that you very quickly, like really early on, locked into the fact you're like, oh, I'm going to take this and I'm going to use it not just when I'm here, and I'm going to take this back, I'm going to do it at the gym. And you had a good routine, and all we did was just slid that into your normal routine. It didn't seem like it was that disruptive. It was just kind of an added block.
Right. You know, people that are on the fence, nobody really wants to have surgery per se. I'm not saying that surgery wouldn't necessarily work or not work.
And we've talked about that.
But I think people need to look at, from physical therapists or doing things that help you get better, which is your long-term path.
And looking at maybe that different path than running right to surgery, or, you know, realizing that maybe even though you've maybe failed traditional methods, that there is still another option out there. Right. That kind of a thought process. When you kind of already, you know, touched on this a little bit, and, you know, you said, you know, your only real exposure to the model in general was, you know, going to see other traditional providers and things like that, and not necessarily having a true traditional insurance-based PT experience. But I guess I would say this, how is your perspective on, I guess, like wellness and rehab and like the impossible changed over the
Right.
course of the journey?
I mean, and we talked about this, but as I look back now in 2025, looking back in 2024 is the best thing I did, was coming to see you to rehabilitate, to be able to walk and have a more normal life.
And
And
that,
it's easy to sit here now. When I was hesitant at first, I was like, well, wait a minute. I went to the doctor, couldn't move my foot. It was frozen. What am I going to do? Is surgery what I should be thinking? And sort of as a last resort, I said, you know what? Physical therapy can't hurt. And
Right.
then I came in, we started to work together, and it's been a whole different trajectory, meaning where I am now versus what I was. And it really didn't take that long. And even though I'll say dramatic changes, in my opinion, happen 30, 60, 90 days into it,
Mhm.
the nice thing with the physical therapy, what we're doing is then we started to extend it a month out, meaning every month potentially. And there's a lot that I was doing behind the scenes coming forward. And again, with anybody, I don't know that you see dramatic changes day in, day out, but when you think about 30 days ago or past history, it's very dramatic, the changes.
Which is that is where the secret is like, do you get those, it's, you think 30, 60, 90 days, there's the definition of a long time versus in reality, that's a drop in the bucket. But for, like you said, to come that far over what seems looking ahead like a longer period, but looking back feels so much shorter. And like you said, the difference from where you were to where you are kind of speaks to that tale. I was going to say, you already kind of quoted that. And I still think that's the best thing I've ever heard about.
It's the best thing I did last year, 2024. When I think about, your health and well-being, spending the money, not that it's really we all afford what we want. So I think anybody looking at things has to say objectively, where do I want to be? It's, worth the time, effort, and the money to do it.
Right. And that's, you really hit it on the head, is we all afford what we want. And it breaks down to that because, I've had that conversation with people before, and I've had people with a lot of money come in and decide not to. And I've had people with, money is tight, but they decide this is a priority for them and they come in. And, because that's not a lot of times it's not truly the money, it's the value that people need to see in it. And I think that your experience helps people see that. I try and convey that well, but definitely, when you speak to it, it makes it sound even better, which has been, you've been a really good vocal proponent of me. And I appreciate that, and that means a lot, especially coming from someone in your situation.
Well, and I help people to understand, if you think about the medical community, I just reflect back on my situation. It took 4 or 5 months to see a foot specialist. And in 4 or 5 months, I went from walking with a gimp to walking more normal. And that was just the waiting period to get in, because there's so many, I'll say baby boomers, people older than me, that are trying to get in the chute with doctors and professionals. And it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
If someone was hesitant, if you could put it into a short block, if they were hesitant or unsure, or kind of like some of the people you may have referred here before, what would you tell them as like a way of, hey, you really should go try this out?
I mean, for anybody, if surgery is inevitable, then that's where the outcome is going to be. Right. But before that happens, and I had a lot of doctor friends and other people say, Rick, you really don't want to have back surgery if you don't have to. I was sort of thinking, well, what do I really have to lose? And when you think about physical therapy, our health and well-being, it's just money well spent. And again, you're doing it on a more natural situation than I'm going to resort to surgery. This may or may not go well.
Right. And as soon as you open up the body, God knows what happens after that. At least in here, we weren't cutting you open.
No.
We were affecting change, but we certainly weren't opening ourselves up to some kind of other exposure.
Infection or all kinds of things.
Yeah, God knows.
And again, in the end result, when I think about for the period of time that I was going through the medical community, I wish I would have started here rather than there. Again, you sort of have to open and close doors to check that box and say, does this make sense? Does this make sense? But then it was like, when I look at it in hindsight, it's like, this is really, if I could go back, this is where I would have started.
Which that right there, I mean, I think if more people, and it has nothing to do with me necessarily wanting it, it's that I think if more people could have that perspective, which I think is what's great about you is you're not afraid to share that with people. And then if more people had that perspective, and I think what I'm hoping to do as we grow this is to be able to get people that perspective before they wait 4 or 5 months, before they wait 4 or 5 months to be told, oh, well, we're not sure. God forbid you come see me one time, and even if I tell you I can't help you, at least then you have some kind of exchange. But, track record be shown that a lot of the time we can at least do something, which is better than sitting and waiting. So if you could sum up the experience, one sentence, what would it be?
Best thing I did in 2020.